Hello everybody. Welcome. Last time I needed to end the stream rather abruptly, and we just got into tweens from the tutorial, and I think that's gonna be a really important part. We're gonna use those everywhere, so I think I'm gonna go through it again. It was just like 5 minutes maybe when we started. How's everybody doing? Yeah. Let's do this. Let's do this. And yeah, I think I'm gonna stay in this corner. Oh. Like this. Because we are using a lot of this space to... At least we did with the animation. What's the name? Node name is animation player. Yes. Yes, an excellent day for learning. Although it's such a wonderful weather outside that I wish I could just, you know, move this. Oh, but now the chat is on my forehead. Good morning to you too. Okay, let me move it. Like this, maybe I'm in the middle of everything, but the weather is so now nice outside that I wish I could just move this whole setup outside on the terrace, but I don't think that would work. But yeah, so what we did last time was just started playing with tweens, and we made it so that the camera zooms in when we're inside and then zooms out when we're outside. That's basically how far we've gotten. I think I can move myself back here in this corner. We'll see. Oh, I love the laser lighting so much. Ah, can't wait to start doing my own thing. I wanted to start my own thing for a long time, and I started finally. But I'm having some trouble with setting up tile maps because I want to do a game that happens on a CAD blueprint, so like an architectural blueprint from the top. So I'm drawing everything in CAD software, and then I'm trying to turn it into so everything is vector graphics basically, and I try to do it into rasterize. And when I do that, the tile maps are just 1 pixel too bright, too wide, which I have no idea why. So I'm trying to figure that out so I can finally start working on those things. But yeah, it's probably some math problem that I haven't figured out yet, because it's DPI when you print it, and DPI is in inches, and I work in metric, and then you have to turn, the metric units into pixels per centimeter, and something is getting fucked up in the way. But that's for another topic and another stream series. This is Learning Godot, and we're gonna have another. I'm gonna have another series where I'm actually doing my own game.
More about animations. Specifically, I want to cover another concept called tweens. And tweens are not essential to make a good game in Godot, but they can make your life significantly easier. At this point, we can animate basically any property.
How about you, Prophet? You also started? Are you a noob like I am, or you have your own projects? What you working on?
Using an animation player. The thing is, sometimes you just want to have a simple animation, like zooming in with the camera, updating a position, or changing the transparency. All of these things are quite simple, and as a consequence, an animation player for them
to the first part,
the second. To remedy that situation, we have tweens. And basically what they are. Most importantly, they are not in...
So yeah, I don't know if you know, if you've been here before or not, I don't think so, but let me just I would highly recommend this tutorial from ClearCode. It is 15 hours long. There's a part 2 as well, but it really covers everything, and in the end you end up with a cool little top-down game like this, you know. Look, we have some particle emitters here for the steam vents. We did lighting. Oh, this is very claustrophobic now because of the camera. You know, we have some animations. Nice. Okay, yeah, let's go. Nice, very cool.
Node, although they used to be in earlier versions of Godot. Instead, they are an object that you create in the script of a node. And then this tween object can interpolate between two values.
That's a little bit confusing because you have to spawn it in literally like an object. So you have to say get the tree, which is basically your scene, and then create tween. Before that, nothing happens. Oh, I'm waving.
This might sound confusing, so let's do an example. We want to rotate any kind of node. Doesn't really matter what it is. For that, we are setting a start value, an end value, and a duration. With that information, the tween object can start at a certain point. In this case, we would have a rotation of 0 degrees at 0 seconds, and then over the duration of 1 second, we would go through all of the values and eventually end up at the final value.
Yeah, Choco, we covered timers before.
All of this would take just a couple of lines of code.
Aha, you mean like calling it? Yeah. I saw that as with an autocomplete. Yeah, you're right.
No dedicated node, and it's very easy to work with. Once again, here we are back in Godot. And what I want to do is that if the player is entering this house, I want to zoom in on the player, which means inside of the player, we have the camera 2D, and this one has a zoom level. If the player is entering the area 2D of the house, then I want to increase the zoom level to whatever value we want. Let's say if I go to 1, then, okay, you can't really see the outcome, but if I zoom in, this pink reddish area is the camera zoom. So if we change this to a 1, it is much closer to the player. Although this is not the value I want.
Prophet, how far did you get in the video? Are you behind us or did you do more?
For now, I want to keep it at 0.6. For that though, first of all, we need to have a bit of a setup. And first of all, I want to close the light fan animation and the grenade. We don't need those anymore. Instead, I want to work inside of the house. This one is now going to need a script.
Yeah, it starts pretty slow. About an hour in, you don't even do any programming almost. But it gets really interesting and fun. Right about here, where you start doing lights and particles, it gets really fun.
Script. So I'm going to attach a script. For the template, I want to have an empty one, and the folder should be in the same folder where we have the house. All of this looks pretty good. Now we have a script, and next up, with the house node selected, I want to click on node, and then look at body entered. I want to trigger this signal once the player has entered, and for now, let me simply print player has entered. Also, while we are here, let me check the house area 2D in the inspector for the collisions. Those look good. The house is on layer 5 and can only see the player. Whenever you check collisions, this is a really important tab. It's very easy to mess up. Now, with that, we should be printing something. And let's test it. That's usually what you want to do very often. So there we already get an issue that we get players entered many times. Although we are also getting it when the player is actually entering. To check what's going wrong here, let me print the body that we are getting. And let's try all of this again. And there we can see the simple light is causing the problem along with the wall light. For those, we have to update the collision layers. Which means I want to open up the wall light.
No, not at all. I messed a little bit with Game Maker like 6 years ago. But my main problem is like if I don't touch any of this for like 2-3 weeks, it just evaporates from my brain. So not at all. The only thing I can say is that like I've been playing video games since I was like 4 years old. Started on the Commodore 64. I'm almost 40 now. I'm 37. So, and I played a lot of games, and just like encountering, you know, bugs and watching GDC talks and getting a little bit preview of behind the curtain of game development. I know what a normal map is. I know what, you know, a tile map is and things like that, but no coding experience whatsoever. Normally, like my professional career or my job is I'm a technical drawer or a CAD designer, so I've been doing a lot of 3D drawing, but it's all in engineering context, you know. Yeah, of course, repetition. Repetitum is mater studiorum, as the Latins would say it, right? As the Greeks or Romans would say it. Repetition is the mother of learning. But yeah, the only thing, yeah, I think what I've noticed is that my analytical brain of like just working so long in engineering projects and breaking things up into smaller pieces and going step by step has helped me a lot in this case now as well, to just like, oh, and also working in a million different programs, you kind of understand, you start to understand, okay, the computer, you have to tell him this so it works and things like that, you know. So that all helped a little bit, but yeah, this is all totally new for me. Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know when I started, I had a little pause because I was on vacation. But I think we started maybe like 3 weeks ago. I stream every three times a week, so I know that's one of the reasons why I started streaming all this, is just to like fight procrastination and to be disciplined about it and set aside the time to do it properly, you know, and to focus on it. But yeah.
And I want to open up I called it the simple light. Both of those have the wrong collision layer. And I really want to emphasize this, you always want to keep in mind. It's very easy to forget.
Oh, the only thing that I would the only thing I would kind of suggest is that as you start learning things here, you start a project on the side so you can mess around a little bit. Yeah, chocolate. I know. Yeah, that's basically tweening, yeah. But I didn't know about that concept when we did that. So yeah, Prophet, I would suggest you start a little thing on the side as a side project, just to have another new context where you're learning or repeating the things from the tutorial, because it's one thing to just, you know, always have a guide and follow things, but when I started a new project and everything was blank and I had to start writing code, I was like, duh, what now, you know? So that I think that would be a really... So what I started was that what Chocolate is saying, that like skydiver game where you're falling down. That was just like to test some things. Yes, very much. And what I also what's also very important, but that's too soon to talk about it if you're just an hour in, is getting yourself familiarized with the documentation. I don't know if that's even mentioned in an hour in. But for instance, on almost everything in code, if you control click on it, what was it? Control. Yeah, if you control click on it, you get the in-engine documentation from it. And learning to read this and using it has helped me a lot to figure some things on my own. So you know what is a constructor, what is a method, what is an operator, what's a property, and things like that. Yeah. Oh yeah, you know about it. Okay. Yeah. And also I know that's a little bit more advanced. I don't want to feel your... Go step by step, yeah.
Not be layer 1 in...
Aha, maybe I should tell you about it because it's not mentioned anywhere in this tutorial. I don't think I saw that in another video. So, what you can do, let me open up my little project. So, good job. So I think in Game Maker I remember that there was a way to call a variable, and then there was or to define a variable, and there was a way to define a global variable. So you can call it in any script anywhere, right? So yeah, you can see here, this is my little skydiver thing where you move around. I messed around with particle effects, that's why you have this like crazy wind blowing or the clouds, and you have a little trail that's left. Wait, well, why don't you see this properly? What's going on? I resized the window. Wait, why is this not... It's not showing at all. Wait. Title must match, it must not match, same window. There we go. So, I'm spawning like little drones and stuff, and you can see there's a little trail left behind the skydiver. That's also like a particle effect, but that's not what I wanted to talk about. What I wanted to talk about is that you can set up basically, this is just a node 2D, and it has a script, and basically all the variables I need to access and that have to do with screen size or the spawn area and things like that, I have in this one node, right? And then if you go into project settings and auto load, you can preload this node or scene. It's a scene, sorry. You can preload this scene, and then anywhere, no matter where you are in code, you can just write that name of that scene dot the name of the variable, and you can access it anywhere because it's preloaded. That's a really good tip, and it's been very helpful. But yeah, that might not mean anything if you haven't started thinking about, you know, what you're working on. But yeah, that's been pretty cool. Okay, let's go back. Does this work now? What's going on? What? Do I have two Godots open? No, I don't. What the hell? Aha, the debug has now taken... Oh my god. Oh my god. I don't need the restream chat. What's going on? What did I do? I need to start the game first so the window exists. And then I have to specify it here. Yeah, titles must match. Let's leave it at that. Okay, everything's fine. Nothing to see here. Everything's fine.
That it should be on layer 3 for objects. And for the mask, it can see the player, it can see the enemies, and it can see the projectiles. With that, we can save it. And then for the simple light, I want to have the same. It should be on layer 3 and can see layers 1, 2, and 4. And with that, I should be able to close both of these, run all of this again. And now there's no print statement when we are running the game. And if I walk into all of this, we are getting the player. And this works multiple times, so this is looking really good. That is a good start. Next up, I want to connect this house.
Yeah, I'm going through the tutorial. I hope that gets mentioned here. If it doesn't, I'm definitely gonna look into it, because that is... I already kind of think in classes because of my work. what I usually do. So yeah, that is gonna help for sure.
To the level, or more specifically, the signal we have just created, this one here, this needs to trigger a function inside of the level, which we can do via a signal. So I want to create a signal. Let's call it player entered. And instead of printing something, I simply want to get the player entered and then emit all of that. Now with that, back inside of the level, I can get...
The only thing I don't like about this tutorial is the very vague way he names variables and signals and stuff, right? This is just named player entered. Why isn't this named player entered house? So it's even more, you know, so you don't have to look, oh, where does the signal come from? What does it signal? So that's what I try to do. I try to be more specific with the variable names and things like that. So it's easier. The code is easier to read, I guess, at least for me, and organize.
Now with that, back inside of the level, I can get...
Because I guess for people with experience, it might be obvious, but for me, it's not obvious at all where things come from and what's signaling what and things like that.
Inside of ground, we have the house, and now the house has player entered as a signal. This I want to connect to the level script, and now we get on house player entered. Just to make sure that this one is still working, I want to print player has entered house in level. It's really important to always double check your code, and especially when you're recording, all of this gets significantly more difficult. But this is looking really good. So finally, we can start creating a tween. The way you're doing that is, first of all, you want to get the tree. This is a function that returns the node tree, basically the entire scene we currently have. And this one has a couple of methods. The one we want to use is called createTween. Also a function, and a function that doesn't need any arguments. So this would create a tween object. This we want to store in a variable right away. Let's call it var tween. And now we have a tween, although this doesn't do anything. Instead, what you now have to do is get this tween.
Oh, Prophet, another really good tip that's only gets mentioned like at hour 5 is if you have any, where can I do this as a good example? There probably. So for instance, if you have any type of code that needs an input in the brackets, if you press Control and space, you can get the autocomplete, or it actually tells you what it needs. So for instance, where do we have the tween? The tween is in the level? Yeah. So for instance here, if you have tween and you want to get property blah 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 something, and that goes into brackets, you can Control space and it will tell you what it needs. So it needs an object, it needs a property, it needs final, you know. That would have helped a lot. Sometimes it appears automatically, but if you click away, or if you start writing something, it disappears. That's also very helpful to know, you know.
And then run.
The prompts are hard to read if you're not into code, but it gets easier with time.
Run tween underscore property. And let me extend this window so we can see what's going on.
It's going to say
this
it now.
This tween property method wants to have at least 4 arguments, but we have received 0 so far, so we have to make some updates.
So yes, those are called arguments. Is that called a container, right? When you say a variable is a certain type of data. So if you say var, I don't know, coordinates, and then colon vector 2, you put it in a container that it's a vector 2 type of input. So yeah, the control space, if you have this error where it expects arguments from you, with the control space you can actually see what those arguments are. Sometimes it's pretty complex. Yeah, basically, right. So sometimes just to identify or to define a color, you need like 4 different arguments, because you know you have a color, hue, RGB, and then things like that. So it's really helpful. Yeah.
Also, a really useful tip: if you hold Control or Command and space, then you can see what Godot specifically wants for this method. And number 1, it wants an object. Most of the time, the object is going to be a node. In our case, the object would be the camera 2D. So inside of the player, we have a camera 2D. Next up, we want to have the property on this node that we want to change. Which means if I minimize this window and go to camera 2D in the inspector, there we have zoom. And if you hover over that, we get zoom. This is the property we want to address. And importantly, this property Godot wants to have as a string. So on string, zoom. Then
that's pretty confusing that it wants a string as a name, but if you get used to it, then you can basically write anything, right? Would you have to put whatchamacallit, a lower space dash thing if you want to write, for instance, ignore rotation as true or false? Or you just write it as a string normally?
Name of this property,
it's normal text.
And then we're good to go. And once again, let me extend this.
It would be normal text.
We will need
then,
2 more attributes. Godot wants to have the final value and the duration. Now, for zoom, the value Godot wants is going to be a vector 2. With 2 values, let's go with 1 and 1 for x and y values. And finally, we need a duration, and this is in seconds. So if you add a 1 here, we have a 1 second duration. And now Godot.
Okay. Let's actually look at the camera properties. What was that? Player? Camera isn't. Oh, that's weird. Does he have it like that? I don't see his tree right now. So we added the camera. The camera is part of the level, but it's a child of the player. That's fine. Ignore underscore rotation. Yeah, okay. Okay, so it ignores, for the most part, it ignores capital letters, and then for... Yeah. Okay. That's nice. That it says everything like that.
Is not complaining anymore, and this should be working. So let's try all of this. And I can walk towards the house, and once we are entering the area 2D, we can see our camera is zooming in. So this is working really well. I can still do everything else, so I am quite happy with that. Perfect. I really hope you understand why the system is incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
If the player is entering the house, we only want to zoom in, so ultimately a fairly simple operation. We could accomplish all of this using an animation player, but it would be way too much work, which is why you're seeing tweens all over the place. They make your life much easier, although you could get by without them. However, with that being said, if I run all of this again and I go into the house, so just a second, the animation still works, but the issue we have now is that if the player is leaving the house, the camera doesn't return back to the default state. And fixing that is going to be your exercise. I want you guys to change the camera zoom back to the start value of 0.6 for both X and Y once the player is leaving the house. Pause the video now and try to implement that.
Okay, this is where we actually stopped, or after I did this exercise, but we did it like this. Was it in the player? No. Was it in the house? Yeah. So we had a signal for player entering the house. We did the same for player exiting the house, and then we emitted. We connected that to the level node. Wait, if I go here, level, player camera node. No, house. Yes. So we have here player exited house. That's connected. We have that as a function here. And then we get another tween, and we go back to the 0606 zoom in the speed of, or in the time of 1 second. So it's basically the same function, but just the other way around. Okay, he's gonna explain it now better than I can.
I want to start working on the house because in there we have
This recap was
attached
more
a
for
new
me.
signal, which is body exited. I want to add that to the house, and now we have a new function. Although this is local to the house scene, so we have to create another signal. Let's call it player exited. Once we have that, all we have to do is get player exited and then emit this signal. With that, we can return to the level scene, select inside of the ground, the house, and now we have another signal. This we want to trigger and connect it to the level script. Let me get rid of...
So let me just recap this. So this is important. So we need to... So first you make a signal inside a node, call it to the main scene, and then from the main scene node you have to call it into another scene. That's basically what we did here. So in the house, we used a signal that's integrated into the area 2D, which is on body exited. We signal that outside so we can connect it into the level. It's kind of confusing, but I'm kind of used to it now. Probably not, but at least it makes sense.
The white space and extend the window.
Hey Lodan, welcome to the stream, dude. Why are you not a fan of using a custom signal? Is there another way you could do that with an area 2D? Chicken, hoppa, hoppa, my dog wants to come on my lap, but she doesn't. But she wants to, but she doesn't. Does she? There we go. You can access the player from the onBody entered function, since the player will be the body. Aha, you mean like specifying the player only and not doing it by collision layers.
Inside of this function, we now want to create a new tween and use that to update the camera once again. For that, once again, I want to create a new variable.
But the way he does it is a bit more flexible, because if you want something else to trigger on entering a house, you would just need to change the collision layers, right? Which doesn't seem like a bad thing.
Variable with tween. And this one is going to get tree. And then on that, I want to create a tween. On the next line, I want to use this tween object and then run the method tween property. And once again, we're going to need 4 arguments. First of all, we need an object, which in our case is the player camera. So I want to have the player and then the camera 2D. Once again, we want to target the zoom. So as a string, I want to add zoom. Next up, we want to return to the start value, which was vector 2 and 0.6 and 0.6. Finally, for the 4th value, we need a duration. And just to have something else, let's say 2 seconds. Once we have all of that, Godot stops complaining. We can run the game again. And now if I go into the house, this should still work. And that is looking really good. And now if I leave the house, we are going back to the default camera zoom. And, well, we can do this multiple times. This works really well. Cool, I'm happy with this. With that, we have the basics of tweens. Now that being said, you can do quite a few more things with them. Although before I get to them, the debugger is complaining, and this I don't like. Basically, we are using body inside of these 2 signals. And Godot doesn't like that, so we have to add an underscore so the debugger stops complaining. This is a smaller issue, but you don't want to have too many debugger issues. At some point, they are going to become annoying and confusing.
Yes, it does, but it doesn't necessarily need to be the player, right? Yeah, that's a problem with programming when I think about it in general, right? There's a million different ways to do stuff. And of course, there is like best practices for everything just because people have been doing it for a long time, but I don't know. It seems like there's no wrong way to do something, at least, you know, if it's not widely unoptimized or something. But yeah, I get what you mean.
Confusing. If we now run all of this again, the debugger is happy, so everything is good. Now with that covered, we can look at a few more extra functionalities of tweens that can also be super useful. Right now, we have one animation when the player is entering the house and another animation when the player is leaving. If you want to have something a bit more fancy, you could add multiple animations on one tween. For example, what we could be doing. If I want to add another animation, I would simply add tween again.
So for instance, those are 2 different functions, right? That's why he can use the same variable name, tween. But that gets really confusing to me really quickly. So I would probably name this tween zoom, camera zoom, and things like that, you know?
Again, then use tween property once more. Let's say as an example, I want to make the player invisible. For that, I want to get the player, or the player node to be more specific. Next up, the property I want to target is modulate. This property covers the color and the transparency of any node. Ultimately, it is a vector 4 with 4 values. We have a value for the red color, for green, for blue, and then for the alpha values, which we cover with A. Now, in our case, we don't really want to target all of them. All we care about is the alpha value. And for that, Godot has a nice shortcut. You can use a colon and then lowercase a. With that, we are only targeting one value inside of this property. And this value we want to set to 0. Finally, for the duration, let's say I want to have a duration of 2 seconds. And with that, if I now run all of this again, I can move the player to the house. And now we are zooming in. And after we have done that, the player becomes invisible.
It goes
And we
one
still
after
have
the
shadows,
other.
so everything else works fine.
It stacks
But,
them.
well, now we have an invisible player. Which is illustrating one major issue. That we are first playing this animation, and then we are playing the other animation. Godot plays them in sequence, which means if I turn all of this around and have modulate first and then the zoom, you can kind of tell where this is going. We are going to have first the transparency and then the camera. So now the player becomes invisible and then we are zooming in. Sometimes this is the desired behavior, but most of the time it is not. To play both of these animations in parallel, you would get the tween and then the method set parallel, and you would set this one to true or false depending on what you want. In my case, I want this to be true. Which means if I run all of this now, we can walk in there and we would get the animation and, well, we would get both animations for the camera and for the transparency. You might have also seen, let's say, if I type tween again and then set, we can also set a loops. So if you want to play an animation multiple times, you could do it with that one. Although I am not going to do that, that's something slightly more advanced. Or not really more advanced, just slightly different, and I am not going to need it. Instead, I want to cover something else. And that is when you are tweening a property, you can add a tiny bit more. For example, right now we are setting the player, we're getting the transparency, and we are only setting the end value and the duration. What we can also do is set a start value. This you get by adding a dot and then the from method. In there, you can simply set a start value. For example, if I set this to 0.5, then let me actually demonstrate what's going to happen. If I now run into the house, we are going to transition the player almost immediately to half transparency, and then we are moving to 0 transparency. By default, Godot is going to start with the current value of the player, which is 1, so full transparency. But if you want to have a default start value, you could use from. Besides that, you could also set a transition speed. For example, right now we are zooming in with the camera, and this works at a linear speed. But sometimes you don't want to have a linear speed. And for that, you can add another method called set trans for set transition. And in there, you get a whole bunch of different kinds of transitions. For example, I guess trans quad should be visible. If I now run all of this, you might be able to see this or you might not. For this kind of animation, it's a bit hard to see. So there we are zooming in seemingly faster, but we're not actually doing that. Let me draw this actually. When you think about transitioning any kind of property, you would have two axes. On the x-axis, you would have time, and on the y-axis, you would have some kind of value. The simplest transition to understand is a linear one. This one simply moves at a straight line. However, this is not always what you want to have. Sometimes you want to have an animation transition that looks something like this, or something like this, or even something like this. All of these you could set with set trans. Now in my case, I will not be too concerned about this, but this is also something you can do. Tweens are actually quite powerful in Godot. Although at some point, if you add too many things inside of this tween, you might simply want to use an animation player. There's no hard line between which one you should be using. At some point, you're just going to get a feeling for it, but both are perfectly fine.
Wait, why am I getting... something's not right. Tween property player camera. Two 1 dot set ends tween is and out. Cannot pass a value of type tween is type as tween transition type. Ah, okay. So not every. Not every transition type works. Spring? There we go. So now we should have like a boing. Yeah. Boing. It's not very visible, but you notice the difference between the two. There we go. Okay.
Approaches. In my case though, I want to comment out the modulate because this is not something we are going to need. Now finally, there's one more thing that I want to do. If I go back to the main scene, when the player is entering this area. So far, I can actually demonstrate this. The player can keep on moving. So this is not ideal. Instead, what I want to do is if the player is entering this area, I want to transition the player speed to 0. What that is going to mean is that the player is moving normally, and once we are entering, we are slowing down the player, so we are ending up somewhere here. That way, the player is never going to reach this bit, which would look a bit unrealistic. For that, we will need a few more things. It's not too much. Back in the player, I want to work in the script, and I want to give the player a few more attributes. Also, for those I want to use export, I want to create var max speed. This is going to be an integer, and this should be 500. Besides that, I want to have a normal variable, which is going to be speed. This one is going to get the max speed value by default. Also, we can be a bit more aggressive here. This speed should also be an integer. Once we have that, I can update this 500 with the speed. If I now run all of this, we are not going to see a difference because as far as Godot is concerned, the numbers haven't changed. Speed is still 500. That being said, what we are now able to do inside of the level, when the player is entering the gate, this is happening inside of this function.
Okay. Export var player speed. What do you do? It's an integer and it equals 100, right? And then he did var speed equals their speed, and then here he did speed, right? Snip speed. Is that what he did? I didn't look on purpose. Ah, max speed. Max speed, and this is then max speed. He said this is an integer as well, which is fine. Yeah.
What we are now able to do inside of the level, when the player is entering the gate, this is happening inside of this function. I don't want to print things anymore. Instead, I want to create another variable, which is going to be the tween. And there's something I forgot to mention earlier. So far, we created a tween with getTree and then create tween. You don't...
Hey, Gitesh Gupta. Welcome to the stream, man. How's it going? You also are newly this Thor wave of Godot enthusiasts. How's it going?
Actually, in the first part, you can simply type create tween, and then Godot figures out the rest for you. So this is also perfectly fine. And also the more easily understandable part. So this is probably what you want to do. Next up, I want to get the tween once again, and then run tween property. I want to get the player node and spell this correctly as well. On that player node, I want to update the speed. The final speed should be 0, and I want to have a duration of 1 second. With that, I can run all of this again. And now if I go into this area, we cannot move anymore. Although the
Windows 7. I'm talking about gaming and game engines. It doesn't matter what Windows you use. I don't understand. I don't understand any of this.
duration was a bit too long. So let's say this one could be 0.5. And now if I run this again in there, we cannot reach this ceiling anymore. This is exactly what I wanted. Now, right now, this is looking really silly and we are breaking the game. But later on, we're going to add a transition that the player is going to get into a different level. Although for now, we have covered another really important part, so we are good to go. Although before that, before I forget, the debugger now is unhappy again because we have this body parameter that we're not using. So let's add an underscore, and now Godot is happy again, at least I think it is. Yep, that looks good. Cool. With that, we are finished with this part. Now that we have a level, I want to connect the laser to it. And this is going to mean a couple of things. Most importantly, I want the laser to disappear when it is colliding with a wall or an object. On top of that, if it is colliding with an enemy, it should trigger a function. For now, this function is going to do very much. Later on, when we work on the enemies, all of that will be much more elaborate. On top of that, there's one more thing I want to cover. And that is that the laser should disappear after a certain amount of time. That is important because I want to make sure that we cannot have infinite lasers. And the reason, I think, is best explained if I look at all of this in Godot. Back in the editor, I want to run the game, although I don't really care about the game. I want to look at remote, there we have the level, and there we have projectile. This right now has nothing in it. However, if I go back to the game, and I simply shoot in one direction, we...
Aha! Okay, yeah. I tried installing Godot on my very old laptop, and it even gave me an error just when I started it. It was like, hey, this graphics card doesn't even have, you know, and I had to force it to open up in like what's the name? OpenGLXG, yeah, some kind of, you know, different mode. And then I tried loading up a tile map, and it's just fucking the laptop almost exploded. So I understand, yeah. I cannot work on that on a shitty PC, no way.
Now get a whole bunch of children, and this can go on ever. Which is fine for the game, and for this kind of 2D game, it wouldn't cause a problem. That being said, if you have a more elaborate game, where you work with 3D objects, where things get much more complicated, you want to have a limit on how many objects you have in the game. Just imagine that the more objects you are creating, the more your computer has to process. So we want to have a limit on how many we can have. And for that, we want to have a timer that even if the laser doesn't hit anything, we still want to get rid of it after some amount of time. Now, for all of that, we have to work inside of the laser. So let me open the scene with Control or Command Shift and O. I can open the laser. And there we have a laser, and the laser has a script. We are simply creating a speed and a direction, which by default is up. And then inside of process, we are updating the position of this area to the. And then inside of the level, when we are creating all of this, inside of the onPlayer laser function, we are setting a position for the laser, a rotation, and a direction.
Wait.
And then inside of the level, when we are creating all of this, inside of the onPlayer laser function, we are setting a position for the laser, a rotation, and a direction. So now we have to create a few more things. Most importantly, whenever this laser collides with a static object, then we want to destroy it. Which means inside of node, we want to look at body entered. Body entered because the area is going to collide with bodies, which are static objects or character bodies. So this I want to connect to the laser, and now we have a function. What we could be doing in here, for example, is print, and let's say collision. Now, if I run the game again, I can shoot at a wall, and we get collision. To be a bit more detailed, we can also print the body this laser is colliding with. So if I now do this again, we get a collision with the gate. And if I shoot in this direction, we get collision with the tile map, and this multiple times. So if I click on this, we get a whole bunch more. And this seems to be working just fine. That being said though, for this game, I don't want to print anything. I want to destroy the laser. And this we can do quite easily. All we need is the command Q3. This is destroying a node. And that is exactly what we want to do. If I run the game and I shoot at a wall, the laser simply disappears. The same works with the steam vents, and the same is going to work with these walls as well. With that, we have covered the first part, that now the laser is going to disappear once it collides with a static object. But this is not enough, because if I go back to the level and minimize everything, what I now want to do is add another scene. And the scene I want to add, if I click on Ctrl Shift and A, I want to add a drone scene to my level. Let's say,
what's that right now?
Somewhere here. And now, if I run the game, the drone is going to move to the right, and if I shoot at it, the laser is also going to disappear. So this one is still working just fine. But now, what I ultimately want to do is that if the laser is colliding with this drone, I want to call a function. And for that, we have to figure out inside of the script on the laser, we want to get the body, which could either be a static object or an enemy. And on this body, we want to call a function if the body has certain attributes. For example, if the body belongs to an enemy. The way I approach all of that is, inside of the drone, we have a process function, and I want to create another function. I call this one function hit. It doesn't have any parameters, and all it is going to do for now, it is going to print, let's say, damage. Doesn't really matter what it is. What I now want to do inside of the laser, I want to call this hit function. What we can be doing quite easily is we can get the body and then call the hit method on it. And this would already work. So if I now run all of this and I shoot at the drone, we get damage. So this is working just fine. The problem is, if I shoot at anything else, the game is crashing because we have a non-existent function hit in base static body 2D, which basically means that this method doesn't exist inside of a static body, which is
so it needs to be inside an if statement?
Is the steam vent. To fix that, we have to check if the body has a hit method or not.
Yeah.
The easiest one would be with if, then the body, and then the inbuilt method has method. I don't suppose I have to explain what this one is doing. The one argument that this method wants is a name of a function. In our case, this would be hit. And if that is the case, I want to call this method. And now, if I run all of this again, I can shoot at a drone. It is still working just fine. But if I shoot at anything else, we are not getting an error anymore. And that is because this...
But isn't there an easier way to do this? Is to check if the collision body is on the layer of an enemy? Then it would need this function. Oh no, it needs this function because it does damage and calculation and stuff later on, right?
If statement is not triggering.
That's chocolate. That's probably a thing you can set up with classes later on, right? Because if you have a class, then some functions and scripts are always active for it. You don't have to write it on every enemy, right? If you use collision layers, yeah. It wouldn't free itself. Okay. Yes. Okay, that's what I thought classes are gonna be very helpful with. So you don't need to like rewrite code for the same class of things, right?
Which is basically covering the other aspect of the assignment. So now we can trigger a function if we're hitting an enemy with a laser. Although you don't actually see this kind of method being used all that often, because Godot has a simpler way of doing all of that. All you have to do, if I get rid of it, you have to check if the function or property, in this case hit, is in the body. The result would be the same. So if I now run all of this again, I can still shoot at the drone, we get damage, and if I shoot at anything else, we don't get anything. So this is the same outcome, but a bit easier. Also more powerful, because with this syntax, you can check if a method, like hit, or a property is inside of a node. For example, what I could be doing inside of the drone, I could create an attribute. Let's say var is enemy, and this would be a boolean, which by default is true. This notably is an attribute, not a method. So we cannot call it. But inside of the laser, we don't really care about it. We could simply check if is enemy is in the body, then we can print is an enemy. If I now run this again, I can shoot at it, and we get is an enemy. And this we don't get anywhere else. Although this isn't actually what I want to do. So I'm going to get rid of it. Also in the drone, we don't want to check if this is an enemy. Cool. With that, we have another really important bit. Now we can call a method on an enemy, and we can also get rid of the laser if we have a static.
I got the thing I was eating on my keyboard. As per usual. Okay. So we have this on body entered. Then we go drone. We make a new function called hit. This is gonna just print image. You need this to work. And you need this to work. There we go. Then on the laser, we should check if it that in body that hit so-called function. Okay. Let's see. I need to put the drone in the level. I don't have a drone right now. So-called level tuck drone that, and we're gonna move it right here. Yep, that works. Drone left. Okay, cool.
Object. Now we have another way to damage an enemy, and that is via a grenade. And for now, I'm going to ignore this one, because later on we have to cover another concept to make all of this work efficiently. So don't worry about this one for now. Finally, I want to create the third part, and that is that we want to get rid of the laser after a certain amount of time, even if it doesn't hit anything. And that is going to be your exercise. Basically, what I want you guys to do is to use a timer to destroy the laser after 2 seconds, or basically whatever amount of time you think is appropriate. Pause the video now and try to implement this one.
So yeah, we can do this with a classic timer node, but let me try and do it as a tween, calling it in code. So if we go here, we have a laser. That's gonna be in the process. That's not gonna be on body entered. It's gonna be here. We're gonna create timer. Fuck. What was it? Maybe it is, but let me try it. Let me try it at least. It's basically this, but it's create timer. Wait. Timer, create timer. Really? Create. Ah, it's an area 2D. I cannot do probably a timer inside an area 2D. It has to be a node 2D, right? Let me check. Mouse, layer. So here I would probably be able to create. Var x equals create. Yeah, but he did it without it as well. He said that's not needed. Or am I crazy? Because if you look at here, where was it? In C, we have var tween, just create tween. He said you can do it without this. But yeah, let's try this. Yeah, I don't think you can create a timer on Aha, it needs what does it need? Oh, it needs a bunch of shit. Process always, process in physics. Timer 2. Aha, at least one. Okay, is that enough? Yep. And then let's see how we should do this. Scene 3 timer, create timer. Returns a screen 3 timer which will emit timeout after the given. Chocolate, let me do this. We talked about this. But it's always set to false. Pausing the C train also pause the timer. Processing physics set to true up the C train during the physics frame instead of the process frame. If ignore timescale is set to true, ignore engine timescale, okay? Okay, so if we go back here and we say if timer dot timeout, then Q3, right? Okay, don't have a laser at all right now. Always. Aha, it needs to be on the shoot, not on process. This needs to be on the player node, and it needs to be on if action pressed, can laser, and then it needs to be here. Right? Right. Oh! Timer for laser life. So if action is pressed primary and can laser. Aha! I destroyed the player. Okay, can I specify? No, wait, this should work on the laser because it doesn't exist until it's spawned in, right? Maybe here. Yeah, let's do it as a node then. I don't understand this very much. No, you should not tell me. Chocolate, god damn it. Timer. Let's say 2-second timer. Let's call this laser life. Then use this timeout. We connect it to the laser. On laser life timeout, we just do Q3, right? Oh, that was just covered by the... I fucking hate that when I forget. There we go. Let's see here in remote what's going on. Check tiles. They're still there. Aha, it needs to be on... It needs to start again. Right? Aha, auto start. Ah, there we go. One, two, 1, 2. There we go. Now as we keep shooting, the lasers start disappearing. Nice. Okay. I think I got it. Do I need this then? When it's auto start? Let me just code this out. Oh, maybe I don't? Yeah, I don't. Okay. If true, the time will automatically start when entering the scene tree. Aha, when entering the scene tree, so it spawns in with the laser, so it starts for every laser. Yeah, okay. So we don't need this. Okay, that's it. I've spent way too many hours, like 3 hours on one lines of code, so this I find an upgrade. This is pretty good.
Back in Godot, I want to keep on working in the laser, and since we now want to use a timer, I have to attach to this laser another node, which would be a timer. I'm going to call this the self-destruct timer. This self-destruct timer inside of the inspector is going to have a wait time of 2 seconds. One shot should be enabled, but auto start should not be enabled. Once we have that inside of this script,
I did it the other way around.
we basically want to start this timer once the node has been created. And for that, we will need the ready function. So func underscore ready. And once it is ready, I want to get the self-destruct timer and then start it. That's the first part. The second part is once the timer is running out, then I want to call the timeout method and connect it to the laser. All this one has to do, if I get rid of pass, we want to queue free, meaning we want to destroy this node. And with that, we should be done. So now if I run this, I can shoot all the way to the right.
Is there a reason why the timer should not auto start? Every time the laser gets spawned into existence, the timer automatically starts, and we don't need another ready. We don't need a ready function. I think it's there isn't a difference. I'm just thinking of like what's more flexible or what, but I really don't think it makes any difference.
And if I now look at remote level projectiles, right now it's empty. Let's try this again. We get a laser for a short period of time. So there we have.
But here is an interesting fuck. I keep getting German words in my head instead of English. Beispiel. Here's an interesting example of how a very simple thing can be done with the same outcome in a very different way. And then imagine something more complicated, like this was just like destroying one thing after 2 seconds. It's insane.
The laser, and there it disappears. And this to the player would never be visible because the laser leaves the screen really quickly. But, well, we make sure that we never have too many lasers. And with that, we have connected our laser to the level scene, which is another major part of the game. So with that, we have made a huge amount of progress. At this point, we are able to create a single level, but that is still quite limited. So in this part, we are going to cover how to create multiple levels. All of that in the most...
Okay guys, I'm gonna take a break, a 5-minute break, before we start with this other part. Just gonna take something. I'm just gonna have something to drink and things like that, so in the meantime, I'll play some of my older videos. I'll be right back. See ya! more fun, like thinking about how all that is going to translate into the. That's me. Those tuning in for. I think I need to just put it a tad bit. It's kind of loud. Those tuning in for Toxic Runoff, the show that asks you, can you outrun your own corrosive effluent? Please be assured. Aha, justice will be swift. Okay. Taiko, you've got to get out of there. Forget the shower. Meet me outside. I'm on my way. Okay. We have to run because there's police coming, I think. Ah. Shit. Okay, that time we got to running before the animation even starts, so I think we're good. Ah. But as you'll see pretty soon. That was close, you okay? Good. You're wanted for murder. Okay, yup. Get it all out. My fault. I should have slowed down for that. My guess? A Tokyo assassin needed a scapegoat, and that's you, kid. I knew someone, Sasha. She gave me a login for a nearby terminal. Said I should use it if I was in real trouble. I'll take you there and you can check it out. Okay. So as you can see, the game looks really, really cool. And I think the inspiration for the game was the Chinese version of Google that actually has its 3D view, or its isometric view, kind of pixel arty and cool like this. I can use use binoculars to look around. Look at this, people are doing yoga up here. Yeah, this game looks amazing. It's just, I would really, really love it if it was easier to play. Because actually this perspective actually makes things a lot more difficult, because you have to see. There are a lot of times when there's gonna be stuff you don't see because of the perspective. And I guess, yeah, that's just the way it is. Let's go and do this first couple of missions. Okay, that's Taiko again. It's an assassin's portal, perfect. This gives you an option that isn't jail. Here's the plan. You become an assassin. Okay, I'll be your handler. We'll work our way up the food chain until we find someone who can explain why you're Tokyo's most wanted. Just think about it, everyone's on the nanomeds these days. Aha. People don't die anymore. Generally speaking, the guy you're supposed to have killed must have been off his meds. There's plenty of contract work now that putting a bullet in someone is less of a philosophical no-go. So there's really just one question. You in? Oh, skip that. You start with something simple. That's a pistol. There's a pistol nearby. Grab it. Your target is Seamus Brown, a mini-golf tycoon. He's knocking his orbs about now, all zen-like. You'll have to drop on him. You'll have to drop on him. Okay? There's also an ability you have to change your appearance immediately, so you can like what's this here? Okay. Is that like a save spot, I think? Checkpoint? I think that's checkpoint. So there is stealth in this game as well, and combating the camera while you're doing stealth is really, really something. So, okay, let's go kill Seamus. Oh, did you see that cat pickup? Down there? Huh. How am I supposed to get to that? The more important question is, how am I supposed to get back? Jump down here, that's okay. I understand that. Yeah, let's not do that right now. I like the music. The atmosphere. Oh, why I fell down! How did I fall down? Can't he just walk down the steps like a normal person? Jesus. Oh, yeah. You can walk over the ledge pretty easily. Okay, select the weapon. Yeah, this is the quick. So this is like the quick aim that you have with the controller, and let's check how this works with the mouse. Yeah, because you have a depth aim as well. So, oh, started running. Nice. That's done. Yeah, I'm gonna switch to the mouse and keyboard. Already saved here. Okay. Select reward. I'm gonna go back. So it's kind of cool because it's a open world game to some extent. Nice. Failure to cap a golf tycoon and you go and put a hole in one. No, nothing. Okay, yeah, that was kind of lame. This next hit requires something with range. The merchant on top of the Centauri tenements has a sniper rifle in stock. Treat yourself. Getting up there could be slightly tricky. Care to try the parkour de jour? Once you've bought the sniper rifle, head to the vantage point and show me some sharpshooting. Okay. It's kind of strange that it has increments of 45 degrees and not 90. Man, this is getting me... When I turn out the camera like this, it's making me dizzy for some reason. I don't usually have problem with that in games. Now that I mention it. Maybe because the camera is so floaty. Are you guys sick as well? Or is it unnerving for you as well? Okay, I'm back. Could you guys hear the audio of that video? I don't have it playing on my headphones, but it should stream out. So, yeah, let's keep going.
The most fundamental sense is actually kind of easy. So in this part, we are going to cover how to create multiple levels. All of that, in the most fundamental sense, is actually kind of easy. All we have to do is to create multiple level scenes. Unfortunately, it isn't that easy, simply because our level contains quite a bit of code. For example, to create the laser or the grenades, all of that codes exist inside of one level scene. If we made multiple level scenes, that would not be available. Now, we could copy the code over, but that would be really inefficient.
Yeah.
Imagine later on, you might have hundreds of levels and you wouldn't want to copy over the code every single time. If you had to make a single change, this would just not work anymore. Now, to illustrate all of this a bit better, let's have a look at all of this in Godot. Right now, we have a single level. So I can zoom out and we have all of this. A fairly basic level, but for now, this is pretty good. If I wanted to create a second level, in the most basic sense, all I would have to do is create another scene. This would be a 2D scene, and let's rename it right away to level 2. The name here doesn't matter so much. I am going to delete all of this in just a bit anyway. So if you don't want to code along for this short bit, don't worry too much about it. For this level 2, I could, for example, add another scene, which would be the player. If I save all of this under scenes and levels, there we have level 2. And now I have level 2. This one contains the player. And I guess just so that we have something else, let me add the bed in there as well. So there we have a bed and the player. If you want to test an individual scene, you wouldn't click on this play icon. Instead, you will click on this one. With that, you are only running the current scene. So now if I click on that, the player is still working around. However, now we don't have a camera. And if I shoot, we only get the particles, but we don't get an actual laser. And that is because all of the logic for that happens inside of the level. Meaning all of this code here, 35 lines of code, are only available inside of this level. They are not available inside of level 2. Which is why all of this is incredibly limited. As a consequence, I will close the scene and go to levels and level 2 and delete this scene, because it's simply not an efficient way to create multiple levels. Instead, let's talk about a much better way. The concept we need is called inheritance. Basically what that means is we want to create a parent level scenes, and this one is going to contain all of the logic. So for example, this one would contain the logic for shooting a laser, shooting a grenade, and anything else that we could need. But this parent level scene isn't actually going to be visible. Instead, what we are going to do is when we are creating any other level scene, these level scenes are going to inherit from the parent level scene. That way, they have all of the important code, but we can create multiple instances of that scene. That way, we could have hundreds of levels, they would all share the same code base, and then you could even add additional parts. Godot is making all of that actually quite easy, so let's jump right in and let's have a look at all of that. What I want to do is to have this level as the parent scene, and then I'm going to create an inside level and an outside level, and both are going to inherit from this level. That way, we can keep all of the code we have written so far, and then have two other scenes inheriting from this code. Or at least from parts of this code. You're going to see in a second what I mean. When you look at the top left, there we have scene. And the first entry is new scene. Besides that though, right below, we have a new inherited scene. If I click on that, Godot is giving me another dialog. In there, it tells me to open up a scene. The scene we are opening up would be the parent scene. And right now, this would be level. So this is what I want to open. And now we get another scene. And let me put both of those scenes right next to each other so you can see the differences. Also, I guess I should close everything else so things are a bit easier to see. Right. Now we have the level and we have an unsaved new scene. If I minimize everything in there, you can see now we have the same nodes, but some of them are yellow. So in the original, everything is white. In the inherited one, we have some yellow scenes. The yellow scene means that it is inherited and all of this should be yellow. This may just be a bug, but all of these scenes are inherited from the parent scene. And what is really important now, if I go to the level and I, for example, delete the drone. If I now save the level again and return to the unsaved scene, the drone has also disappeared. Which means that whatever change we are making to the parent scene, it will also affect the child scene. And I guess to make all of this a bit more noticeable, let me rename this scene to the outside scene. And now, once I've renamed it, the bug disappeared. Now all of this is yellow. This is how it should look like. I can save all of this as well. Now I have outside.tscn. And if I run this, we have no change whatsoever. Besides that, I want to create from my level another inherited scene. So new inherited scene. Once again, I want to inherit from the level. So I click on open, and this scene I want to rename to inside. I want to save that one as well, and we have the name right away, inside.tscn. Perfect. With that, we have 3 levels. We have a parent, then outside and inside, with outside and inside being children of the level. The issue now is that both of the inside and the outside levels look identical. And for that, we have to make a few more changes inside of the parent. All of this needs to be quite a bit more flexible. For example, what we could be doing is that this gate isn't necessary inside of the parent. It should only be inside of the outside scene, which means I want to get rid of it. I can simply delete it, and now it's not visible anymore. With that, make sure you are saving this level, and now in the outside scene, this one isn't visible anymore. That being said, we can totally add it again. So with outside selected, I click on Ctrl Shift and A, and I want to add the gate again. And place it once again in the right position, something like this. And also make sure that it's below the player. With that, we have the gate inside of the outside scene, but inside doesn't have it. And a similar thing, if I go back to the level, I want to do with all of the nodes inside of the ground node 2D. So for that, I want to right click and cut all of them out. The level scene becomes really empty. And this is by design. All of this should be empty so we can design the actual level inside of the child scenes. In there, we still have all of the stuff from the parent, and that is because I have to save this level. It's very easy to forget. Now, the ground node is entirely empty. But what we can do now is simply paste all the stuff we have cut out, and there we have the level again. However, inside of the inside level, none of that is visible. So this is looking significantly better. At this point, I can play both of these scenes. So if I run the outside scene, just the scene itself, which I do with this icon, I can still run around. Everything is working just fine. So this is really good. We also still have the house over there, and all of this is working. Although there's going to be one change we have to make, and that is the gate entrance. This one doesn't work anymore because we have to reconnect the signal, but that is quite easily done. What is much more important now, if I go to the inside level and run all of that, I can run around and there's nothing right now. However, we still have a camera and we can still shoot a laser. We can also shoot a grenade, so this is working just fine. And there, if I shoot it, you can see the camera is still working. That is the basics of inheritance. If you're creating multiple levels, you want to have a parent level that is ultimately quite bare bone. So in this case, we have a node 2D for the level, then a ground node, then the player, and then projectiles. However, then inside of the outside scene, we have the actual images that flesh out the level. And besides that, we have an inside scene. In this one, we're going to decorate in just a bit. First of all, though, we have to cover one more thing. And that is that if I zoom in, this area 2D has lost its functionality. If you look at the code, we want to reconnect this signal. But there's a bit of a problem right now. And that is that this outside scene has the level node. So if you hover over it, you can see level.gd. If I go to the parent node, the level, we have the same script, so level.gd. And inside of the inside scene, we also have level.gd, which basically means that all 3 scenes share one script, which might be intentional, but very often it is not. For example, for the outside scene, we want to have the functionality for the gate only inside of this particular scene, which basically means for the outside level, I want to have another script, and this script should inherit from the level scene as well. And that you can also do quite easily. First of all, with outside selected, I'm going to click on this icon, which is going to detach the script from the selected node. If I click on that, we don't have a script anymore. But now I can add another script, and this one would be outside.gd. I want to save all of that in the same folder, so all of this is looking really good. I can now click on create. And with that, if I run this particular scene, we are losing our access to the laser. So now, once again, we don't have level.gd anymore, meaning nothing is going to happen. Which means we have to figure out how to get all of the code from level.gd into outside.gd. To achieve that, you want to go to level.gd and then all the way at the top, you want to create what is called a class underscore name. And you can see once you write it, it becomes red right away. Once we have that, Godot wants to have a name for this class name. In my case, I'm going to call it level parent. What this allows us to do is to inherit from this script, which means inside of outside. I don't want to extend a node 2D. Instead, I want to extend a level parent. Right now, Godot cannot find it because we have to save level.gd. If I save it, go back to outside, now the error should disappear. And there we go. If I now run all of this again, I can shoot, and you can see I have loaded level, the parent scene. And this one doesn't contain anything right now. Instead, I want to play the outside scene. So if I run all of that, now we have the shooting functionality once again. So this one is working just as before. And that is because with this class name, we can inherit from the script like we have inherited a scene. So all of these functionalities are available inside of outside.gd. What this is going to allow us, inside of level.gd, we want to cut out this onGate player entered gate. So I can simply Control or Command X and get rid of this code because we don't need it inside of level.gd. It should only exist inside of outside.gd. And let me save level.gd really quick. And now in outside.gd, I want to select the gate, go to node, and now player entered gate. We can connect to the outside scene. And with that, we get the signal once again. And inside of there, I want to paste the code in that we had earlier, like so. If I run this scene again and I go to the gate, the player stops moving really quickly. Meaning this code is working just fine and it is only available inside the outside scene. Inside doesn't have anything like that, but it does have access to all of the stuff from the level. Although we are getting a debugger error, and that is because in outside, there should be an underscore body. With this part implemented, we have the two major approaches to inheritance. You can either inherit from a scene, which you do by going to scene and then new inherited scene, or Control or Command Shift and N. You can also inherit from a script, and this you do, for example, inside of laser, you are giving a script a class name. And then on any child script, you are extending this script, not the node you are inheriting from. That is pretty much all you have to know.
Can you extend multiple scripts?
If you understand that, you can work with inheritance quite well.
Can you extend multiple classes together?
Now this is incredibly important to understand, so I really want to do an exercise. I want you guys to create a generic item container scene. This should just be a static object, a sprite, and a collision shape. It should also have a script with a hit function. So if a laser collides with it, you are printing something. This could be literally anything. Let's say for now, you should be printing the word object. From that, I want you guys to create two child scenes. One should be for a toilet, the other for a box. All of the graphics you can find inside of graphics and objects. Finally, there should also be inherited scripts, one for the toilet and one for the box. For both of them, I want you guys to overwrite the hit function, so that you are printing toilet for the toilet and box for the box. Pause the video now and try to implement all of that and see how far you get.
Okay. Okay, let me put up my concentration music. So, first of all, on the level script, let's do the class thing. Level parent. Sorry. And then
having said yes to the instant, the affirmation is contagious. It bursts into a chain of affirmations that knows no limit. To say yes to
yeah.
one instant is to say yes to
I need to reconnect it. Outside gate. Load. Then enter the gate. Outside. Goes inside. Oh, the music is too loud. There we go. Does this still work? The camera isn't working. And this isn't working. To remember to press the other button. I just close everything because I'm suspecting that. What the fuck is this music? But we are inheriting the main scene because I can still shoot and everything, right? Yeah. The only question is why am I not inheriting the camera? I think I've... I am inheriting the camera. Aha, the signals for the camera are local. So gate is just on the outside scene, okay. I copy and pasted it. Maybe I should just reintroduce it again. Side. Gate. There we go. Already has this code inside. Yeah. Hmm. Does any of this work? Ugh. Oh, okay, so it doesn't... The first flag does work. Let me disconnect this from gate to outside. Connect. And then this. Goes here. So the gate works. Player emit. I'm not gonna get used to this. Pressing the other button. God damn it. This should be the same. Why doesn't this get transferred to the... Debugger. Wait. On area to the body, I entered error calling from signal player enter gate to callable, no to the outside. Method expected arguments but called with 0. Something broke with the signal and I don't know what. I do not know what. Let me check how he did it.
Back to outside. Now the error should disappear. And there we go. If I now run all of this again, I pause, like we have inherited a scene, cut out this on gate play. Entered gate. So I can simply Control or Command X and get rid of this code because we available code level node, and now player entered gate. We can connect to the outside scene.
Yeah, I did that.
And with that, we get the signal once again. And inside of there, I want to paste the code in that we had earlier, like so. If I run...
Yeah, but I have lowercase body on everything, so it doesn't, it shouldn't.
This scene again, and I go to the gate, the player...
That? That's basically the only thing I haven't tried yet, I think.
Stops moving really quickly. Meaning this code is working just fine, and it is only available inside the outside.
Hey, Amazing J! I didn't notice that that's somebody else that's new. Forgot to put it into the emit call. But do I need that? I don't think he has that too. Ah, yeah, now it is working. Okay, thanks. So let me try and... yeah, normally I don't like that at all, but this I don't like it if it's new things just writing code for me, you know, but this should be pretty... What I don't understand is actually what... Let me put the music a little bit lower. What I don't understand is how does this body in brackets actually work? Let me check it like this. Welcome to the stream, by the way, and thanks. Why I don't understand this, why do we need to identify the body here if we are specifying that the player needs to change the speed? Because this only triggers if the player's inside. Maybe that's why? This I don't understand just yet. But that's fine.
Scene.
Yeah, you're probably right. Okay, what was the... I didn't... Yeah, create a generic item container scene. Yeah. Item container scene. Static object. Static object. Already did an error by trying to be too fast. Static body 2D item container. Then sorry. Then we need a sprite and a collision shape. So probably gonna be empty, and we're gonna inherit that for the thing that we're actually doing. So script func it, and we're gonna pass it for now, right? No, wait. I shall have a script with a hit function, simply print. Okay. Print checked for now. Are you also starting out, or are you more experienced, and do you have projects as well? What you're working on? Create 2 child scenes from that. One should be a toilet, the other a box. Images, okay. Then we go 2 child scenes. He means an inherited scene, probably. I have to save all this first. Objects, item container, and then we go scene, new inherited scene. We're gonna call it toilet. No, base scene is gonna be item container. Open. Okay, we're gonna save it as toilet. Nice. Yeah, I'm doing the same for now. Going through this huge tutorial to get the basics, and then I am gonna start doing stuff. I already wanted to start doing stuff on the side, which I kinda am, but I'm having a big problem with doing tile maps, tile sets. So I'm trying to figure that out first. So it's gonna extend. We should. I need to break this, remove, and then add another one. And it's gonna extend. We should do a class, right? Class name item container, and then toilet should extend item container, and function head should print toilet. Is that gonna work? Yeah, let's do another one. Nope. New inherited scene, item container is the main one. So this is all wrong. We're gonna delete that. That's fine. We're just gonna save this as box, right? Box was the other one. I already have a box. Yeah, that's fine. Gonna reconstruct it again. So this is gonna be nope. We're gonna break this, add another one. It's gonna extend item container, and it's gonna say box, but box. My main problem is I want to make tile maps in a CAD program, which uses vector graphics and not pixels, right? So I'm not drawing, I'm actually constructing things, and then when you know, print it out and use metric system as DPI and everything gets fucked, so I cannot tile the tile set properly, which is really frustrating because if I was able to do that, I would already be well on my way to do things. But yeah, when I figure that out, the workflow for that, it's gonna be a lot easier, I think. And let's see how this looks. It's a box, that's fine. Collision shape should be a maybe a rounded rectangle type thing. Nope, fine. Wait. Wait. So that's fine, and then we have the toilet. There we go. Then a collision shape is probably gonna be actually a collision. Then we don't inherit it from the... Okay, we're gonna delete this node. It's not gonna be inherited. What? Delete. Why can't I delete this? It stays in the item container, but I don't wanna have it here. I cut it. Oh, really? Okay. Well, it's a circle shape then, I guess. It's okay. Okay. What did it say? Create two child scenes from that. One should be a toilet, the other a box. Also create an inherited script, which will write the hit function and print either toilet or box. Okay, let's actually test this out inside our game. So if we go outside, or actually let's do it on the inside, that should work too. And if we put box, here, and nope. Toiler. I wrote that wrong. A toiler. Well, you do toil at the toilet. Depending, you know. Toilet. Okay, that works. Box, that works. Okay, that seems to be working as intended. Let's keep going.
There should also be inherited scripts, one for the toilet and one for the box. For both of them, I want you guys to overwrite the hit function, so that you are printing toilet for the toilet and box for the box. Pause the video now and try to implement all of that and see how far you get. I want to get started by creating the parent scene. So in new scene, the root node should be another node and more specifically a static body 2D. Let's rename this one right away as well. I suppose item container seems appropriate. Besides that, I also want to give this one a sprite 2D and a collision shape 2D. Important for this one, they don't have any contact. The sprite 2D doesn't have a texture and the collision shape doesn't have a shape. Godot is going to complain about it, but we can just ignore it. Next up, I also want to give this item container a script. Although first of all, I want to save it. With Control or Command Shift, I want to go to Scenes, and in there, I want to create a new folder. I suppose I could call it Container. All I have to do in there is save it, and now we have an item container. This one should get a script right away. So I attach a script, item container, the same folder, all of that is looking really good. I can create, and all I really want to do in here is to create a function for hit without any parameters, and all I want to do is to print the word object. With that, we have a couple of nodes inside of a scene along with a script. This we want to use via inheritance, which we do by going to scene and then new inherited scene. The parent should be the item container. This I want to open. And let me return to the 2D view, that's a bit easier. Now we have an unsaved new scene with a sprite 2D, a collision shape, and a static body 2D. I want to rename that one right away. Let's call it toilet. Inside of this child scene, I now want to add the sprite texture, which I'm getting from graphics. There we have objects, and inside of there, I think all the way at the bottom, we have a toilet.png. I want to drag that into the texture, and there we go. We have a toilet. Next up, we will also need a collision shape 2D. And I think for this one, a circle shape 2D would be best. Let's do something like this. This really doesn't have to be perfect. I want to save all of this, and now we have a toilet.tscn. This would cover one of the objects. Next up, I want to go to scene again, and a new inherited scene. For this one now, we have to be a bit careful, because Godot, by default, sets the parent as the currently selected scene, which is the toilet scene in my instance. This shouldn't be the parent
But
scene.
amazing.
Instead, the parent should
what
be
project
the
do you have in
container.
mind? What are
Make sure you
messing around
select
with?
the right one for this one. It can be really easy to confuse. This I want to open, and now once again, I have the same basic setup. Although for this one, I want to go all the way to the top. There we have box, and the box has a base and a lid. I just want to use the base and drag it into the texture. Although, that being said, with this item container, we could add another sprite 2D and place it right below the other sprite 2D and simply place the lid in there. And I think the lid needs to be moved down a tiny bit, something like this. You don't necessarily have to add this step, but I'm going to use this one later on anyway. So we might as well add it right now. Next up, we have to add a collision shape. And for this collision shape, I want to have a rectangle shape 2D, which I want to space accordingly. That's looking pretty good. Once we have all of that, I can save it. Let's name it crate. And that's not how you spell crate. That's better. Now we have a crate and a toilet. That's a really good start. Inside of the outside scene, I want to...
Oh, that is smart. Yeah, making mini games. I was actually thinking about a WarioWare type thing, you know, where it's just like 5-second little scenes. Yeah, that's cool.
New scenes. So with Control Shift and A, I want to add the toilet and I want to add the crate. I can also place them in a better position, and I think the toilet ended up to be a bit large, but that we can work on later. First of all though, I want to run this particular scene. And now if I shoot at the toilet, we get object, and if I shoot at the crate, we also get object. On top of that, the collisions are also working just fine, and the player can collide with them. Right. So this is looking really good. Perfect. That's a really good start. So once again, we have an item container, and this is a static body 2D with a sprite and a collision shape. This we are using inside of the toilet to give it a certain kind of texture and a certain kind of collision shape. Same with the crate. In this one, we have another texture and another collision shape, and on top of that, we are adding another sprite 2D. Whenever you do inheritance, I guess the best way to think about it is that whatever you're doing to the parent is going to affect the children. However, what you're doing to the children is not going to affect the parents or the other children. That way, we can customize each children individually without affecting any other child. Next up, we have to work with the script. So just as a reminder, if I run all of this again, if I shoot at the toilet and the crate, we always get object. And this is not what I want. Right now, the issue is that the item container, the toilet, and the crate all share the same script. They all have itemcontainer.gd. To work with that, I want to open the itemcontainer.gd script and give it a class name. Class underscore name. I suppose item container for this one is also a pretty good name. This now allows me to inherit from the script, which I want to do inside of the toilet. First of all though, I have to get rid of the previous script. For that, I want to detach that script and add a new one. It should be called toilet, this one's just fine, and I want to create that one. Really important, I don't want to extend a static body 2D, instead I want to extend this itemcontainer.gd, meaning I want to extend this class name. For that, inside of toilet.gd, I want to extend the item container. So far, this is not going to make a difference. So if I just run all of this, I can still shoot at the toilet and we get object. However, this allows me now inside of toilet.gd to create another function called hit. This one should simply print toilet. What is now going to happen is that toilet.gd is looking at the item container and gets access to all of these functions, or more specifically, this one particular function. But then it also looks at its own body, where it also finds a hit function. And it always prioritizes its own hit function.
Okay,
meaning
cool.
This hit function is going to override this hit function inside of the parent. As a consequence, if we are running the outside scene again, I can shoot at the toilet and we get toilet. However, if I shoot at the crate, we're getting object. To work on that, inside of the crate, I should also rename the item container to crate. Next up, I want to detach the script and attach a new one with crate.gd. This one, once again, should inherit from item container. And after that, I want to create a new function that is going to be hit without any parameters. And for now, it is just going to print crate. That should cover everything we need. I can run outside, we have toilet, and we have crate, and this is looking really good. I suppose to demonstrate that we are still getting from level container the basic information. We could, for example, add a method here, let's say func_ready, and simply print object was created. If I now run outside again, we get object was created for both of these objects, but the other stuff still works just fine. Which means you could add any kind of function inside of the item container, and they would be available inside of createGD and toilet.gd. Once again, it might be a good idea to play around with this yourself. It can be a bit overwhelming in the beginning, but once you get the basics of it, it's incredibly useful, especially when you have multiple objects that are kind of similar, but not exactly similar. Before we finish with this part, there are two very minor changes I want to make. Number one, inside of the level, the projectiles should be below the player. That way, if I am running this particular scene, the lasers look like, well, they don't look like they're on top of the gun anymore when we are creating them. It's a fairly minor change, but once you notice it, it gets really annoying. So look at the gun, the laser always starts on top of it, which isn't ideal. But if we have the projectiles below the player, this is not a problem. Besides that, I want to go to Project, Project Settings, and there, inside of Run, we can set the starting scene, which I want to set to the outside level. That way, I can close all of this, and now whenever I click on this button to run the game, we are starting inside of the outside level.
Yes,
the parent level, the player is never actually going to see. It's simply a template for all of the other levels. The major part missing right now is that we have to create an inside level, and this is what this part will be about. And fortunately, there isn't very much that we need to get started. Basically, we're going to reuse the tile map and the earlier bits we have built to build this level. There's only one thing that I absolutely have to cover, and that is how to use a tile set across multiple tile maps, so we don't have to redraw all of the shapes for the collision and the lights. But that is very easily done. Here we are back in Godot, and first of all, I want to close the item container, the toilet, and the crate. So I have only the levels open.
I'm getting kind of tired, and it's really hard for me to concentrate, so I think I'm gonna leave this for the next time, for tomorrow. Tomorrow we're back to our regular scheduled program, streaming Mondays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays. And this seems like it's at least half an hour, so like an hour and a half streaming, how it usually goes. So yeah. But I'm really getting into this. The only frustrating part is getting my tile maps to work, so I can finally start working on a side project as well. But I think we're gonna call it here, guys. Thank you very much for everybody that joined. And yeah, go do your projects. Go learn stuff. Go, you know, not just Godot. Learn play guitar. Learn a language you've been putting off. All that's good stuff. Hey Kent, thanks for dropping by. Don't forget to follow, like, subscribe, ring the bell, you know, fire the smoke signals, all that. And we do have a small Discord community that's starting up. We're starting to share our own little projects and talk to people, talk with each other and stuff. It's been really nice. So let me get you all this if you want to stay in touch. And yeah, and also on the Discord I have events for the streams put up, so you will get notified if you want that as well, which could be, you know, pretty useful. But yeah, thank you very much, everybody, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.